Hey guys, welcome back to The Thinking Shooter. On this episode, we're going to sit down with Mike Mihalski from Sons of Liberty Gun Works. We're going to do a little interview. So, here we go. All right, Mike. Like I said, I wanted to sit down with you, kind of get some behind the scenes, get some input from you guys on how things are going, right? So, before we get too far, I want to get a little insight into Mike.
Okay.
All right, so what got you into guns, I guess, to begin with? Like, how did you start?
So I think like most people in this industry, my story is not unique. We were indie users first, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so from as early as I can remember, I mean, I grew up with a rifle in my hand. If I completed my chores early when I was 5,
Yeah.
you know, I got like a handful of 22 ammo and I'd sit
Yeah.
on a tank dam and shoot turtles or something.
Right.
I mean, so that was my, and it was almost an obsession. Like since the earliest thing I can remember, like all my toys were guns. Everything I was into was guns, and so nobody was exactly shocked that I went into,
No one was like, oh
yeah,
my
a
God.
career
Right.
of firearms. I mean, this was something that was an early passion from my early childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, like, for Christmas and birthdays, I get those, like, 550 round bricks
Yeah.
of 22.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they would all be gone well before, birthday and Christmas. So,
Yeah, same here. That's exactly right. Yeah.
so what led you to start working on guns? What made you decide I want to start building my own? Like, I know everybody kind of knows you started in the garage. ATF came in and was like, hey bro.
Yeah.
So you actually opened up shop. But what led you to start doing it in the garage to begin with?
So at the time, like if you look at 2011, 2012, that time frame, there were a few companies that I thought had really made an impact on stuff, right? You had Debunking, PCM, Dale Defense, like Geisley accessories, rails like that. And so what you were seeing, those companies, which I have a lot of respect for, had huge influence on me. They were basically taking a 6920 Colt and making it legitimately better.
Yeah.
They're introducing mid-gas systems, introducing rails for better interface for things, different selectors, charging handles. They were making these incremental improvements to basically a 6920. Okay, they never took a step back in quality. Buffer weights, bolt materials, gas ports, the techniques, torque value, all of that stuff was taken from the TDP. Okay,
Yeah.
and then they found ways to legitimately make those better based on end user input. And what I mean by end user input, you're at the height of GWAT, so you're getting real world feedback from guys who are deployed on stuff that they would like to see on the weapons, and these companies were making it happen. Like John Debunking, way ahead of his time. I think the way he looked at the gun was he saw the AR as being a lot more versatile than like a duty carbine. He started looking at the AR and its potential for precision aspects and stuff. That's for like polygonal rifling and stainless steel barrels, and it started, I think, exploring how far you could take that platform to do some other neat stuff. Same thing with Paul Buffoni at BCM, even Marty Daniel at Daniel Defense. I mean, LaRue, right? So seeing this stuff, it got me really interested in what I could contribute to that. And at the time, you had an option to where you could buy like a DD rifle off the shelf, and then when you got it home, if you wanted a different muzzle device, a different charging handle, perhaps a different grip, there were certain features, not mechanically, but features in terms of like ergonomics or just the end user specification. You were tasked to kind of do that with yourself. So you were buying an expensive rifle, coming home, throwing like $400 worth of parts into a coffee can, buying those parts, and then rebuilding the gun. Our original business model was to build high performance gun built to the end user specification. So it came with that AAC muzzle device already installed. It had that BCM charging handle. It might have had this Geisley fire control group in there. All of this stuff was done. The end user could specify every component and then professionally built by armorers, which people take for granted. The assembly technique is every bit as important as the components themselves. You know, I mean, if I gave you a Ferrari in parts and you know, asked you to wrench on that shit in your garage, what you gave me back is not a Ferrari. You know what I mean? So that got me really interested. I took a class from my mentor, Will Larson.
Okay.
And what that helped me do was to be able to quantify and articulate things that I intuitively saw. So I would see a problem with the gun or see something going on there, and I had a hard time kind of organizing the approach to that. And I think with Will's class, adding some structure to these intuitive ideas, that was kind of the nudge that got me into, okay, I'm gonna pursue this.
Okay. So with that, why the AR instead of like a 1911 or AKs or something?
So I believe the AR-15 is legitimately the most effective defensive tool a civilian can own. Okay, not just that, we live in the United States, right? So if there was ever a period of social unrest or there was ever some type of, you know, cataclysmic event, you're gonna have a lot easier time finding 223 and 5.56 than you are probably any other cartridge, maybe 9mm, right?
Yeah.
So the push towards the AR had a lot to do with the fact that I believe in it as a system. I believe in the AR as a system, and if you build those things right, they're incredibly tough. It's the most versatile gun ever built, most modular. The average person can service that gun forever, indefinitely. There's not a single part on that gun that somebody could not service or replace with just a little bit of training. And so, I mean, if you wanted an apocalypse gun, that is it, especially if you live in North America.
So what is your take on? I'm sure you would be pretty inclined that someone should get some type of actual professional training if given the opportunity. But you got like all kinds of YouTube videos and stuff that anybody can watch.
Yeah. So I mean, look, a lot of our friends, family, clients are really high-speed guys. We have clients and friends in CAG and then SEAL team and then, you know, all these neat units, high-speed motherfuckers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but if you were to ask a lot of these dudes mechanically what's happening in the gun, some of them will tell you there's fucking wizards in there pulling ropes,
yeah.
Right? Their skill set is, you know, they're the race car driver, and then, you know, there's techs and dorks like me that build the engine.
Yeah.
Right. So those skill sets don't always overlap, and so having a little bit of actual formal training on not just how to do something, but why. Why do we use this material? Why do we do this process? Why do we choose this gas port size? How does dwell time interact with the internal volume of a gas tube and the size of the gas port in relation to the weight of the buffer and so on? Like, if you understand the weapon as a system, truly understand it as a system, how every component reacts with each other and how this thing was designed and why, you'll never see the gun the same again. There's no more voodoo. There's no more mystery to it. You can watch a rifle shoot from, you know, across the range, and just because the gun's cycling doesn't mean that it's running flawless. I can look at a gun shooting and tell you when you might need to change that ejector spring simply just by watching the gun shoot. You know, I mean, so having a little bit of formal training on those things really demystifies the platform.
Makes sense. So with that said, I kind of polled some buddies and asked what they would, you know, like to see. And one of the questions they had was, do you think what's in store for the future of the platform? Do you think the platform has reached its peak? Do you think there's still places it can go? Are there any like interesting or upcoming things that could really broaden the platform? That's
a great question. It's something that we ask ourselves every day, right?
Yeah.
Our job, in my opinion, is to incrementally improve this platform, to incrementally increase the lethality of the gun, ultimately, right? Well, it's interesting, okay? So if you look at like that new XM5 rifle that, you know, that the Army is looking at fielding.
Yeah,
okay?
the SIG.
Right, so if I had to guess, I bet you they worked that equation backwards. I bet what they saw was a near-peer adversary looking at their body armor, okay? And then that being the task is how do you punch through that fucking thing, okay? So then now it's a physics equation of you know, accelerating a certain mass to a certain velocity to achieve what you're looking for, and how do we do that in a length in which is manageable, and so on and so forth, keeping weight down, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, how do you package that in a cost that doesn't make, you know, it makes some fucking sense,
Yeah.
right? That's how some of that stuff is done. So if you look at the 5.56 or the M4 platform, you know, I mean, I'm wondering, how can you accelerate mass to certain velocities in a certain amount of space? Doing that would take certain materials, sciences leaps, right? You know, you mean, if you look at that XM rifle, the XM5, if I'm not mistaken, like, you have 80,000 PSI in the chamber.
Yeah, something like that. Because I know it's part of it's because of the new cartridge they're using. That
Right, but you have to accelerate, I think, 130 grain bullet to like over 3,000 feet per second
Yeah.
at 13 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need an insane amount of chamber pressure to achieve that kind of velocity. I would have to imagine that like bolt material and stuff at that point is different. You know, so they have made a materials leap, I bet, in that stuff to keep those components alive, sustaining that type of stuff. Like, can the M4 do the same thing? Well, usually necessity drives innovation. So the M4 being as commercially popular as it is amongst the American civilian market, I don't see it fundamentally going away or changing dramatically anytime soon, because for the most part, Americans buying ARs for self-defense are not coming up on a ton of level 4 armor, you know, right?
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, once the first domino falls, once the first company, you know, improves upon something that has made a leap, then to stay competitive, all the other performance-driven companies are going to have to make that leap. And so I don't think that we're at the end of the platform. I think you're going to see ammunition perhaps evolve a little bit. You know?
So you think the platform might, in a standard, because right now the standard is a 5.56, it
Right.
might, as a standard, change to a different caliber
You
before
could-
the rifles end?
You could see that, or you could see the fielding of, you know, hotter ammo or different bullet construction or something like that that would drive then other components of the rifle to have to meet that demand, right? You know, if you're achieving certain chamber pressure or something like that, you better have a material in the bolt that will survive that over some kind of sustained firing schedule. So I don't think the gun has topped out by any means. At the same time, you know, it's hard to predict what the needs are going to be looking outward. I can tell you that people are buying guns now more for defensive purposes than any other time in the history of our country. Like, people are buying guns for defense more than hunting or sporting by far, right? So
Yeah.
knowing that, you know, it's going to be interesting to see the evolution of the gun. We're going to hopefully stay on top of it.
What do you think was the most beneficial improvement to the rifle? Whether it's like going away from carry handle to a flat top, or the adaptation of a free floating handguard system. Like, what do you think is overall up to this point
Yeah.
was the most beneficial change to the
Yeah,
platform?
all of those things are huge. I would look at like some of the pinnacle moments in the development of the platform, right? I would have to say that the introduction of the Picatinny rail was huge. It launched entire cottage industries, right?
Yeah.
No longer are you duct taping shit to guns.
Yeah.
And you know, I think one of the reasons why the AR was not a popular gun for the first 30-something years of its existence was the fixed carry handle, iron sight.
Yeah.
It wasn't very conducive for mounting optics and stuff, you know, especially that high off the gun. Now, making a flat top upper Picatinny rail, the ability to attach enablers to it, whether it be lights, lasers, bipods, whatever, and then, of course, the advancement in optics built around the AR platform made the gun a lot more user-friendly and really invited the civilian commercial market to adopt it, because, you know, you didn't have to be an expert marksman to be able to effectively use an AR-15 with a good red dot optic. You know, I mean, you were able to sort of getting more out of that gun, right? So all of those things I think are huge moments in the development of the gun. The Picatinny rail, okay? all of the accessories and things designed to be attached to the gun.
Yeah.
The free float rail is a big deal. I think the mid-gas system is one of the few legitimate improvements to the carbine. I think the A5 system is one of the few legitimate improvements to the carbine. I think the advent of cleaner, better fire control groups has helped drive performance. And finally, this is might be controversial. I think that fucking pistol brace. I think allowing people to have shorter guns for home defense was a huge boon to the AR-15 being a true home defense gun and seen as a lot practical. So now you can have these shorter platforms without the stupid fucking SBR shit. Yeah. So I mean, believe it or not, I think the pistol brace made a huge difference.
So how do you think things are going to play out now from a legal standpoint with recent decisions like the Bruin case?
The Bruin case is huge, man. So people think that that's a carry case. It's not at all, right? I mean, it is, right? Bruin does discuss the carrying.
The precedent that they set with how
arms are defined. Yeah. Arms are defined as arms, and you have to look at that in a historical context. And there was no such thing as like a civilian version of a musket in 1789. Okay,
it was just a musket.
Yeah, I mean, that's really so. The defining arms as arms is a huge deal. As a matter of fact, the Bruin case right now is being used as a defense to a machine gun manufacturing prosecution in Georgia. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, because I think the way I interpret Bruin, I think that's a very reasonable defense. Okay? So it's going to be interesting. Again, I'm curious to see what the long-term wide implications of that are. To me, it's very clear. To see how it's going to take shape is yet to be seen.
I believe it was also just used here recently in Texas with the age thing that was going on as well. And then have you stayed up with the what's his name, the CRS Firearms, the guy that got in trouble with the auto key card thing?
I have not followed.
Okay, so that he had one of those auto key cards where it was just a metal card that had the outline of one of the auto sear jigs.
Oh, okay.
Right, that the ATF found out he was selling them and decided to arrest him for selling machine guns, even though it was a piece of metal with a laser engraving on it. So he's actually going to court right now and is trying to push it up to the Supreme Court to at least use, I guess, the Bruin as a defense of, hey, this is not a gun, it's a piece of metal, for one. For two, from my understanding, he's also trying to challenge the constitutionality of the NFA itself.
Yeah, I think Bruin's going to be used to challenge the constitutionality of the NFA and perhaps this kind of case. I will tell you, I try to encourage as many shooters as I can, or I shouldn't say even shooters, people that have an interest in the Second Amendment, regardless of your political affiliation. Believe it or not, there are a lot of left-leaning people that actually are big fans of the Second Amendment. They could never bring themselves to maybe vote for like a Republican candidate, but maybe they can vote, or not vote, maybe they can contribute to some of these organizations that are advancing very specific Second Amendment cases. It costs about $500,000 to take a case to the Supreme Court. Yeah. Minimum. So if you find an organization that is willing to do some of this litigious work and take that on, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of anything, kicking some cash towards that, because it's going to make a difference for everybody, right? Again, I'm very excited to see the impact of Bruin, which we haven't begun to see what that's going to happen. I mean, I do suspect AR-15 bans in California and New York and the SAFE Act in Connecticut and stuff. I do expect that stuff to fundamentally change.
Guy's name was Matthew Hoover. I just thought of it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing. I'll definitely look that up. That sounds fascinating. And again, the case specifically in and of itself isn't as important as the concept of what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So
So what would you say to those that maybe aren't necessarily on the right side of the spectrum with politics, but want to get involved with advocating or being a proponent for Second Amendment? Would you recommend like GOA,
FPC? I mean, like I don't think a lot of the a lot of the left-leaning people I know that are very serious gun owners, they could never get behind an organization like the NRA because I think the NRA is too entrenched in right-wing politics. Okay, which is fine. That's a lobbying group, and their job is to get behind the scenes and do lobbying.
Yeah.
The FPC, their job is to bring court cases and launch these lawsuits challenging this stuff all over. GOA, in my opinion, is more of your grassroots effort of like creating awareness and having people show up to the right town hall meetings and doing those kinds of rallies. They all have their purpose. So
Yeah.
what I would tell people that are leaning left that actually do care about the Second Amendment, if you can't bring yourself to vote for, a candidate that you don't align with, you can write a check to the FPC that is going to bring a lawsuit specifically about perhaps the magazine limit in your town. And that's not supporting a political position or a candidate in any way. You're launching a legal lawsuit to challenge the constitutionality of a magazine ban. You don't have to be a Republican or anything to challenge that one specific thing.
Yeah.
That would be my message to people that want to make a difference but still can't bring themselves to pull the other lever,
Yeah.
which is fine. I don't feel defined by any current narrative. So to me, I focus very much on the Second Amendment. My political messaging is usually Second Amendment centric, and I'll leave the rest to the
Everything
to the
else
experts.
is all right, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm kind of similar to that. Although I will say I have a hard time bringing myself to support the NRA for whole other reasons. Because to me, they don't do enough.
The NRA,
Personally, I think the GOA is doing everything the NRA should be doing.
Yeah, the NRA needs some rebranding for sure. I will tell you, they are still the most effective lobbying group that we have.
Yeah.
I know people get pissed off when I say that, but it's true. Behind the scenes, when some fucking horrifically tragic event happens and emotions are at an all-time high, and people, soccer moms who vote are screaming for change. It's usually an NRA lobbyist behind the scenes reminding that senator that when the emotion subsides, your constituents are going to fucking vote. The power of the NRA is not money, right? Because the anti-gun lobby has more money than we'll ever have.
Yeah.
The NRA will never have enough money to even begin to outspend Michael Bloomberg or Bill Gates or the kind of the multi-billionaires that are fighting us, right? What the NRA has is the ability to remind politicians that their fucking constituents vote and that guns are something that we get off the couch for. That's the power of the NRA, is reminding people that we vote. That's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, what would you say Sons of Liberty does, or Mike Mihalski anyway, does specifically to be a proponent for the Second Amendment, in case folks aren't aware?
I mean, I'm actively involved in direct lobbying. There are a number of politicians on the state, local, federal level that I help advise in terms of interpreting certain things, making sure they're aware of certain bills that are coming through, explaining some of the nuances, because political language is confusing as fuck, dude.
Oh yeah.
You can call this the Child Safety Protection Act, and really what it is some kind of de facto, gun registration, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm using that as like a very broad example, but that's how stuff works. And so understand how to pick that apart in terms of somebody that's familiar with the industry. There's a current bill right now that's being introduced and being pushed into the House that would remove the word willfully, okay, from the criteria to revoke an FFL. So right now, currently as an FFL, if I have to willfully transfer a gun to a prohibited person, I have to willfully arm a cartel, I have to willfully give a gun to somebody that I know is going to go do harm with that. Well, willfully is a big deal. I mean, I'm not going to go and fucking stand up for you if you knowingly are trafficking guns to the cartel,
Yeah.
or if you knowingly sold a gun to someone that's going to go shoot up a fucking school. Like I am not your advocate, okay? But that willful in the language is incredibly important, because what happens to every well-intentioned gun seller that transfers a weapon completely legally without any knowledge that that gun is going to go on to be used in a crime. Like, you have to be complicit in that in order to
Yeah.
be punished. Right now, they want to remove that language.
So that they can just punish you.
Yes, and they also want to make it impossible for an FFL to appeal revocation. Right? So if the ATF recommends a revocation for some bullshit reason, you can't go appeal that. In the current bill they're trying to push. What a lot of people don't understand is how the Second Amendment actually works. Okay? The Second Amendment guarantees you and me our individual rights to keep and bear arms. Listen, it is impossible to misinterpret, in my opinion. What the Second Amendment does not say is that Sons of Liberty has a right to manufacture guns for profit and to conduct interstate commerce.
Yeah.
Okay? The Second Amendment does not talk about the gun industry. The Second Amendment talks about the individual's right to keep and bear arms. The fucking anti-gunners have figured this out, and they're no longer trying to attack some of the individual rights per se. They're going after the industry, because if they can shut us down, they have limited civilian access to guns.
Yeah.
If you shut down all the FFLs in the country and you sue the gun manufacturers out of existence, well, you have now limited the access to guns to civilians without having to necessarily encroach on a Second Amendment right.
Yeah.
At least on a full frontal attack. So people need to understand some of the nuanced differences there. Look at these bills for what they are. Anyways, long story short, I do help advise on some of that. We raise money, we contribute money to lobbying efforts, to court cases, which I said, it's $500,000 to take something to the Supreme Court. There are several cases right now that are working their way up that we're helping fund. Raising awareness, educating people on this stuff, organizing grassroots efforts. This is stuff that we do personally, and we work in conjunction with GOA and with FPC, and I do some work with with some members of the NRA. I'm not an NRA member myself.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of the stuff that I do too is believe it or not, celebrity outreach. Okay, because I believe that policy is downstream from culture. So in the mid 2000s, even going into the late 2000s, the anti-gunners did a pretty good job of messaging, making gun ownership taboo. That gun owners were like evil, ominous fucking people.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Hollywood folks that come in and talk about stuff like that.
I'm in the business of discretion, so I'm not going to name names, but I have seen clients of mine, people that have bought weapons from me, celebrities, I have seen them on anti-gun videos, like in their messaging.
Yeah.
And I'll send them a text like, bro, really? But they did a very good job of that messaging. I am trying to engage celebrities to be very openly pro-Second Amendment. Not because I think we need celebrity voices for shit. We don't. But if you're talking about normalizing guns, making guns less taboo, actually being accurate in the culture of guns, like that front is not a bad idea. You're making things less taboo.
Yeah, it helps. It makes
it most certainly does. Like I said, policy is downstream from culture. So there's a lot of things we do on this stuff, man. I have volunteered to be a plaintiff in lawsuits. I've volunteered my company as a plaintiff in lawsuits if they needed us for certain aspects of things. Like, I think we're winning this fight. But they're not. The other side's not going to go down without a fight. We need to keep on the attack. Instead of playing defense, we need to go on the attack.
Yeah, and that's something that I will say is pretty cool in my lifetime, is seeing it go from just constantly on defense to, this is like the first time in my lifetime that we've actually said, no, we're done, and we're taking the attack to them. And it's really awesome to see that.
Launching lawsuits, passing bills. Now, granted, this is something that everybody needs to understand too. Like, I'll use Texas permitless carry as an example. If Trump was president, Texas permitless carry would have never happened.
Yeah.
Okay? It happened because this was our version of obstructionism, and Abbott and Texas lawmakers were going to do the most un-Biden thing imaginable, right? That's how politics works. It's all fucking theater. If Trump would have been president, things would have stayed status quo. But Biden's president, and now we're going to, flex our political will and un-Biden this motherfucker, right?
That non-comply, that
Exactly.
ungovernable penguin thing.
Yes, and that is unfortunately the theatrics and the theater of politics.
Yeah.
Okay. My fear is that if we have a Republican president who were to propose something like a red flag law, would we have a Republican governor willing to oppose it? Okay, because that's where real infringement happens.
Yeah.
Because there's no political theater anymore here.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff we have to be truly vigilant of, making sure that we don't get undone.
Get complacent.
Get complacent, or or get so involved in the politics of it that you lose sight of the policy.
So if there's anybody out there that wants to help support Sons of Liberty and their fight against it, because like I say, you got, whether it's FBC or GOA or you guys.
I would tell people to pick an organization that they can relate to or identify with, or they have the personalities there that you think are doing the most work, and support them. I mean, Sons of Liberty, we're good. I don't need support. I'm not the one in there launching the lawsuit. You know what I mean? Find people that are doing something that you believe in, and actually get involved. I'll tell you what, that those of us who legitimately believe that the last option is very bad. I believe that the last option is a real option. Those of us that believe that are going to truly exhaust every other option before that. You hope that this truly is the last option. I certainly hope we can win it here.
Yeah.
Because if it gets to here, it's very, very bad. And because I believe... For everybody. And because I believe this last option is a real option, that's why I'm going to do everything I can to exhaust these first.
And hopefully keep it from getting...
Yeah.
Because if to those that may not really understand, like, that's a real, like, serious... That's shit you don't want to go to.
No, people...
Like, you really don't.
People, I think, romanticize some of this stuff. Like during the American Revolution, there was a very clear objective. It was freedom from English rule, right?
Yeah.
So you had a very clear, defined objective. Currently, right now, there is no clear, defined objective, and there's not two Americas. There's not two Americas. There's 100 Americas, right? So if things were to go truly south, and you've lost, any type of order, and it's a free-for-all. That's what it would be. It would be a free-for-all. I don't think you'd have like these very hardcore ideological battle lines. I think that you would just have absolute fucking madness. Now, whatever the result of that would be, the country would be fundamentally different after. but there is no clear defined battle lines, and it would just be madness. To avoid that, say we try to exhaust it somewhere a little higher up.
See if we can do this.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do that.
Right. That makes sense.
So have you always had the 2A mindset that you have, or was there a time where you had like a hippie mic that was kind of not very?
I mean, like politically, I think in my early 20s, I had some different political views. Never on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment's been something that has been. I shouldn't even say second. I didn't understand the Second Amendment at 5. Okay, but I understood like the necessity for guns and like the passion for that stuff. I could not articulate that in a political, comprehensive way.
Yeah.
But my position on guns has never wavered. I think that my politics when I was in my early 20s is a little bit different than it is today. I will say I've always had a problem with authority. And like that's not exactly a secret. Except for I think in my younger days, I expressed that in a much less productive way. The older I get, I still have a problem with authority, except for now I identify authority as fucking oligarchs that control our public discourse. I think authority is a weaponized DOJ. I think the authority is really oppressive and crazy policies that don't make any sense. So I think I've channeled my problem with authority in a little bit more productive Avenue.
That's good. So one of the things that I really respect about you is you're very down to earth. Like you really are. You're just a very like, look, I'm a dude, you're a dude, you know. And I've throughout my lifetime I've met other, you know, whether it's celebrity or what very well known individuals. And I've met some, like I actually met Alice Cooper, and he was super fucking down to earth.
Pretty smart guy.
He is extremely smart.
Yeah.
I met him.
Did he do like a Celebrity Jeopardy one time? He fucking owned it.
Yeah, something like that. But like he was super down to earth. And then I've met others that is like, oh, don't talk to me. And I'm like, so how do you keep that? Because I've seen some industries, or even in the gun industry, but some owners of businesses, they get to like a certain point, they get like this real big, you know, like, oh, don't talk, you're not good enough to talk.
So first of all, till this day, if I see somebody in an airport wearing a Sons Liberty hat, like I go up and I thank them. I'm legitimately grateful that they chose to spend their hard-earned money with me, or that they're supporting my company, and I'm legitimately grateful. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in Atlanta, and I was at a restaurant, and there was a car with a Sons of Liberty bumper sticker, or like one of our stickers on the back of the car, and the guy was backing out of a parking spot, and I was gonna walk over and tell the dude, hey man, thanks for the support. And I walked over to this guy's car, and he looked at me like he was about to shoot me in the fucking face. Because like it's a dark parking lot, and there's like this guy, like, you know, this bearded fucking homeless looking dude.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know, I was like, fuck, he has a Sons Liberty sticker on his car. I bet you he's armed. I'm like, you know, I'll thank him some other time. You know, like, I mean, but it's that kind of stuff to where I'm legitimately grateful. Now, with that being said, I think I'm fairly well known, like in our niche. You know, if you're in the fighting gun circles, you probably know who we are. Or if you're into guns, or you know, if you're into Second Amendment politics, you know. So I don't consider myself anything more than a guy that's spent several years dedicated to one specific thing, either making guns or advocating Second Amendment stuff. Eventually, people get to know you when you spend several years doing anything like that, right? So again, I'm just grateful for the fucking people that support us, and that's it.
So, being here in Texas, do beans go in chili?
I like beans in my chili. I personally like beans in my chili. Some people consider that a sacrilege.
I don't understand that, because I'm not native to Texas, so I've always been like, yeah, of course beans go in chili. Otherwise it'd just be like meat soup, you know?
Yeah. So I think I've had some amazing chili both ways. I am not opposed to beans and chili. I'm not saying they have to be there. Yeah. I'm just not opposed to them being there.
So, getting your business going, getting Sons of Liberty going. Whether it was when you first started versus now, were there any hindrances or roadblocks that really were in the way that you had to overcome to get the business off the ground, or even now to continue things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from gun laws, we already know.
No, but I'm not talking about gun laws. Believe it or not, gun legislation isn't necessarily the stuff that keeps me up at night. Very large banking institutions, their internal policies keep me up at night. You know, UPS making public statements about their willingness to deliver gun parts, that keeps me up at night. So, unlike a lot of other industries, we're very limited on how we can advertise.
Yeah.
Like Google AdWords, we can't use that. You know, Facebook or social media boosting and promoting, that's not an option for us. There's a lot, you know, really convenient business tools like Shopify is not available. Matter of fact, they pulled the plug. Shopify almost put us out of business. Shopify almost put us out of business. We built a business around Shopify. They pulled the plug on us.
Oh man.
And you know, we're a young fledgling company, and you're not flush with a ton of cash to just be able to go fucking hire people. It really almost killed us. You know, again, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, you know, these massive banking institutions, their unwillingness to work with you. Borrowing money, the ability to borrow is virtually impossible. PayPal, Square, Zelle, Cash App, a lot of these other very convenient services are unavailable to you.
Yeah.
Okay? So advertising, exposure, banking, moving money around, insurance. There's only like 2 insurance companies that will insure a gun manufacturer. Okay.
Oh wow.
Again, I mean, there's a lot of hurdles in there that make it very hard. Making a living in guns is a hard way to make a living. Okay, I think you have to legitimately believe in what you're doing to put up with this shit. Half the country wants you out of fucking business. I've had media hit pieces done. I've had, I had a guy try to fight me in an airplane one time with my family on board. Those are things that are a bit discouraging. But if you believe in what you're doing, it makes it a lot more bearable. Let's see what else, man. I understood the mechanics of weapons very well. The M4 platform, I understood that gun. But I didn't understand business. I didn't understand margins. I didn't understand cash flow.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the time value of money and so on and so forth. So, having a business partner that had at least some business experience coupled with my rifle knowledge, that's made a difference. If I would have tried to do this on my own, it never would have worked.
Yeah.
I never would have understood the mechanics of business enough to not implode.
So is that kind of what brought Kyle on board?
Well, Kyle and I started together from day one.
Okay.
I mean, so whenever the ATF told me, hey, fucker, get a license, I immediately partnered up with Kyle. We had a little bit different ambitions. I think Kyle wanted to, be a very cool, local, kind of gun retailer. I wanted to be like the best rifle company in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, so but somewhere along the line, our conflicting personalities actually created a really perfect storm, because his approach to things and my approach to things are so wildly different that somewhere in the middle is a really, really effective answer.
Yeah. So earlier you had mentioned kind of like if you're in this niche, then most people have probably heard of Sons of Liberty.
Sure, yeah.
So I know, I guess the vast majority in the niche, at least that I've seen, considers Sons of Liberty to be in mid-tier. What is your view on that?
Yeah,
on a tier system?
Yeah,
Do you think
I think that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I would put our rifle up against any gun in the industry, and I would happily bet on our gun. Okay, the tier system. This is some fucking clowns in their basement making memes and charts. These are not people that do weapons evaluations for any kind of meaningful purpose, because things aren't ranked on that. I'll see a company that's ranked as high tier because they have really nice receiver sets, or ambi receiver sets, or cosmetic. Okay, I would tell you that mechanically speaking, a receiver is the least fucking important part of the gun. And when it comes to tiers, people I think arbitrarily associate price with performance. That's not true. Out of industry etiquette, there's certain things I can't say out of industry etiquette, but I can point to several $2,000 pieces of shit that are made of mechanical garbage, that are made of inferior materials, that are assembled by clowns.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, out of industry etiquette, I can't name names, but I promise you, looking at price per se is not the. It's not the best indicator. If somebody understood specs and could read things individually, that's a way better idea of what you're getting, number one. Number two, I know what happens when we go head to head with all of your top tier companies within actual entities that have very specific firing schedules and very specific tasks the guns must do under certain conditions, and I watch our guns go head to head in real life, okay, against everybody else, and I know how we do. So, again, out of industry etiquette, you can't publish some of that data. I wish I really could. I fucking wish I could. I would love to shut people the fuck up. Okay, but as far as mid-tier, that's horseshit. I would put our rifle against anybody out there, and I can point with objective, and measurable, quantifiable fact as to why. Again, maybe we should gear our marketing more towards dressing people up in fucking kit like Halloween and running around like fucking wannabe operators to appeal to the idiots who make fucking memes.
Yeah. So you're telling me that the tier system we find on the internet is most likely from some dude in the basement who doesn't actually shoot?
Yes. Yes. Like that, like ranking anything like that without any type of like mechanical or performance driven explanation is meaningless. Now, if you could show me on a fucking data chart on objectively why you've come to this conclusion of tiers,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see that, because I can certainly create my own.
Because there could be some merit to that if it was actually done in a manner of
Sure, if you showed
testing, not
yeah,
just
if
names
you,
and
right. If you were to take 10 fucking platforms and not just a sample size of one, but if you were to take a large enough sample size across multiple platforms and then subject them to some type of like standardized like firing schedule or some type of standardized objective metric, okay, and then see who prevailed, I'm just fine. I'm actually really happy if somebody wants to fucking do that. And then you shut the fuck up.
So, I know I've already asked you this question before, but I know the viewers are probably going to want to know this. Are you a dimple or serrated? I know you got like a tangent on this one.
I'll answer on my personal guns. On Mike, not on Sons Liberty production guns, on Mike Mihalski's personal guns. I have both, and the reason why I have both is because I picked up whatever was laying around. You know, whatever I found laying on the bench at the time is how I built my gun. So my dimpled or serrated, it has everything to do with whenever I reached into the bin, what I grabbed.
Yeah. So I know I kind of touched on that in a previous video I did. I'm kind of, I coined the term bitextural.
Yeah.
So I like both. It depends on, you know, some stuff I like dimpled, some I like serrated, but
I don't, like I said, if you look at my guns, there's both. And it has a lot to do with whatever part was the closest to me at the time of assembly.
So does Sons have plans to expand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've more than doubled year over year since our first year of business. We absolutely project doubling again going into 23.
So you think you'll end up in a different facility?
We're already
plan on?
Yeah, we're already in construction of a giant or.
Are y'all staying in San Antonio, or?
Yeah, we'll never leave San Antonio.
Okay.
Is home for all of us. You know,
Okay.
Kyle and I, our roots are here. Our families are here. Kyle has another business that's been in business here in San Antonio almost 100 years.
Oh wow.
So, you know, no, there's no intention of leaving San Antonio. We had outgrown this facility before we ever moved into it. Before our very first day at this facility, we had already outgrown it.
Oh
Okay?
wow.
And like, it's kind of hard to plan geometric growth. Like nobody plans that type of. I think people would be really surprised if they understood our market share and they understood some of the companies that we've overtaken in market share in our niche. I think they'd be very surprised. Yes, we are absolutely expanding. While most of the industry is in a bit of a downturn right now, we're growing month over month. Every month is a record-breaking month.
Oh wow.
Now, just to give people some insight into what that's like, we are technically completely committed and sold out for the next 40 months.
Jeez.
So for the next 40 months, everything we could possibly build has already been sold. You know, our business model shifted from a lot of consumer direct stuff to, you know, larger distributors and larger retailers and stuff that have, you know, asked for, you know, retailer X or distributor X needs 500 of these every month going forward with no end date. We need 500 of these every month until we say stop. Okay, whenever you get into scenarios like that, or whenever you have people call you and tell you anything you can possibly make, we'll take. You know, that's the position that we're in. There are bigger retailers and distributors have already told us if for some reason you ever had an extra 100 of these laying around, we'll take them. So I mean that we always operate in a deficit. With that being said, I would never take anybody's money up front. We do not allow anybody to prepay for us. prepay anything for us. We do not take individual orders because I cannot predict what that production schedule will look like. We invoice once your pallet ships. I owe nobody shit.
Oh wow.
So I mean, like, there's no such thing as a refund with us. We refuse your money until after you've gotten your product.
So kind of touching on expansion, does Sons plan on getting into any other platforms? I know you all are very, everybody knows you're an AR platform company.
Yeah, so
because I know, what was it, several years ago, I think I saw you guys at SHOT. Y'all were talking about a bolt gun that never came to light.
Yeah, so my passion is bolt guns. First of all, if I'm not at work or if I'm not doing something work related, I'm hunting. I'm in the mountains or I'm in the woods. I'm hunting. Right, that's my passion. We have some very cool projects coming up that are not gun related, but that's for another conversation. We are expanding into something really neat. But I've always wanted to do a bolt gun. We came very close. We actually built the prototypes. We actually secured the. We were in a position to hit the go button on that. The thing is that coupling what I just told you about how our production is, the deficit in which we're operating under, right? The amount that the amount that we can possibly supply cannot even put a dent into the demand. And so I thought it'd be a bit irresponsible to divert any type of resources or any type of energy away from doing that. People are counting on us to, like, you have several retailers that are counting on us for their sales, right? The speed of their business is operating at the speed of our business.
Yeah.
As badly as I want to do bolt guns, and they are fucking awesome. Our prototypes are really amazing. As badly as I want to do that, I think it'd be a bit irresponsible to not put all the effort we can right now into doing this.
So do you think things have pretty much stabilized post-COVID then, as far as like business?
It's a really interesting thing. So I think that the normal cycle of guns is over, in the sense that, historically speaking, before an election, you would see a spike in gun sales because people were afraid of the election results and what that would do to gun law. I don't think that's true anymore, or certainly not in the way that it used to be. Okay? I don't think having a Republican president or a Congress slows gun sales down. As a matter of fact, it's probably the inverse. Because if you have a Republican, like if Trump were to win the election, okay, the amount of cities that would be on fire, the amount of clowns launching crazy protests, the media frenzy and fear and the fucking madness that would make would drive gun sales. Okay, right now gun sales have kind of plateaued a bit under Biden, even with the recent passage of an assault weapons ban in the House. That didn't really move the needle because everybody knows that it's theater bullshit and there's no chance of making it to the Senate. People know that.
Yeah.
Okay? So that didn't drive gun sales. But I'll tell you what, the next time you have like 30 American cities on fire at the same fucking time because the media stoked this irrational madness, yeah, that's going to have an effect on gun sales. Furthermore, the demographic of people buying guns aren't what it used to be. That whole caricature of the American gun owner is over forever. Like the political left and people that are historically anti-gun, they are buying guns faster than any other demographic out there. So I think that like the prediction of the cycle is out the window.
Okay. So do you guys have any plans for the future as far as other weapons you're doing? Kind of like we talked about, you want to get in bolt guns, but staying within the AR line. Are you going to do any retro, kind of like what Brownells has?
So
the retro line, or maybe a pistol or something?
I don't know. Maybe like a one-time run of like heat clones.
Yeah.
Maybe. We have a sense of humor. And we have the means of production, so might as well do some stuff like that, right? You might see some of that stuff. Right now, I don't want to really comment on some of the things that we're exploring because, like the bolt gun, I made the mistake of talking about that a little bit prematurely. That was something I was very excited to do all we had to do is hit the go button,
Yeah.
you know. But I think it was a responsible decision to kind of postpone that until the new facility is stood up, until we can actually bring in like almost a division on that. I don't want to take away some of our production guys now and redirect them into that effort, because that's robbing
Yeah.
this production, which is clearly already owned. So that's kind of where we're at. I'll tell you, you'll be the first to know.
I appreciate that. So what led you to go with like the new M89 rail over the M76 that you had originally?
So the M76 is still a staple product. We'll never get rid of that. The M76 is a fucking awesome rail, and a lot of people actually prefer it because it is a little bit more slim. That wedge lock is extremely tough. That steel barrel nut, the way that wedge works, is an extremely tough rail. M76 is not going anywhere. I think the M89 evolved from some end user feedback, specifically guys that were really doing some more of the high speed shit. Okay, so if you're looking at deflection with lasers, it is going to have minimal. I mean, I think probably the best measurable deflection for like any like lasers,
Yeah.
as anything out there. If you look at some of the guys that are doing real precision stuff, regardless of the position of the bipod on there, your point of impact shift is truly about as minimal as it can possibly be. I'd say more so than most anything else out there. It's a very rigid rail. Also, because of its slightly larger diameter, it takes a little bit longer to heat. Because of its larger diameter, you have more real estate around the gas block. Okay, for mounting stuff that's not going to interfere or make contact with that gas block. There are a couple of ideas that were worked in there that aren't like, you don't pull this stuff out of your ass. When you go to the engineering side, the prototyping side, you're drawing stuff up and you're going to do it. The stuff that is on that rail, it's not arbitrary. This is coming from like end user feedback, and we have some really interesting people contributing to that. We have some very high speed people contributing to what they want to see in a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what, I guess kind of leading to that, is that kind of what led to doing things like your signature, your Sage Dynamics rifle?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Aaron Cowan had a very specific idea of what he wanted to see, like, and what he thought was the perfect carbine. I have to be honest with you, if the fucking aliens landed tomorrow, I'd probably want a Sage Dynamics rifle. Seriously, out of all the guns we make, I love our 13.7s. That was my brainchild. 13.7s that we do and the way we do them with the Knox and stuff, that was my project, okay? I love that gun. I love our 11.5s. That's what's by my nightstand is an 11.5. So I'm not, but I think if the fucking apocalypse happened tomorrow, I gotta tell you, I think a 12.5 carbine set up the way Aaron kind of wanted that thing set up is a pretty fucking hard gun to beat.
So what leads you to do collabs with other guys? So like, for example, I know you've done stuff with Floor Controls and, like we just talked about Aaron Cowan. What leads you to do collabs with some of these other businesses or individuals?
There's a lot of people who I really respect their...
or even Dead Air, because I know you do some stuff with Dead Air.
Yeah, I mean, we did, last Black Friday, we did a collab with Geisling. They brought back their 13-inch, I think it was their Mark 8 rail just for our collab, There are people that I really respect in this business, whether they're instructors, trainers, designers, engineers. We do stuff with Hodge. Like Jim Hodge is a good personal friend of mine, and there are some things that I really, really appreciate about the way Jim's mind works. And some things we've done some work on. Same thing with Roger. Some of the things that Roger has done, I think, are legitimately better. And we have the right chemistry, the right personality, where we sit down, we talk, and we see things the same way in terms of what we want to achieve. And, we bring our resources to the table and, make it happen. Same thing with the instructor and the pro staff side. These are guys that shoot for a living. That's all they do. All these guys do is shoot and teach and, run guns. Not just that, they're able to observe sample sizes of probably thousands over the course of a year with all the students that are in their class watching all the stuff that they observe. All right, so when they have an input on something with a weapon, Like, I think that's worth taking seriously. I think that that's input that means a hell of a lot more than some asshole in his basement making a tier chart, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how some of these collaborations are born. A lot of it's chemistry too, though. There are a lot of guys that I will tell you are very talented instructors or very talented engineers that we probably clash on a personality level that I would not work with, and they probably don't want to work with me either.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a very short conversation. You know what I mean? The guys that I respect what they're doing, their vision, and it's mutual, and our personalities align. That's what breeds the collaboration.
Okay. So what led to using, like, for example, Dead Air products then? Because is it just not just a personality thing, but just their product you feel is
both. So you have to remember, like, Dead Air and Sons Liberty have like a kind of a similar trajectory, right? So when Dead Air was really getting going, you know, Mike Pappas, you know, he's a very good friend of mine, and I think a brilliant motherfucker, like mad scientist, brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Interesting guy. Back then, Gary Hughes was still very involved. Gary Hughes is one of those guys that I would fly to Utah and help him hide a body. You know, he's he'd probably do the same at the time. So, and then of course Mike Heath Green and a couple of the other guys that are involved. Now Ernie Beckwith, very good friend. So you definitely have the personalities aligning, and then I think their products are they're very, very tough cans. You have the Inconel materials. You have the experiments with like Stellite, the way the baffles are done. That lockup, okay, for the chemo without, you know, it defeats that carbon lock phenomenon that you see with stuff. So you have a very tough, overbuilt suppressor, has very good sound suppression capabilities, but more than any of that, you have very good repeatable point of impact shift. You have a rock solid lockup. That's why we developed the Nox, was to take advantage of that chemo mount.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have really good fucking people behind it, and dude, it's a home run. Like, why would you not work with those guys?
Yeah.
And there's a ton of value in it too. There are suppressors, I'm not gonna name names. There are suppressors that I think, performance-wise, are similar to the Dead Air cans that cost damn near double the price. I don't see a performance benefit. There's certainly not one that's worth twice the money.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have Dead Air, which is bringing that performance to bear out of really good value. And if you want to arm as many Americans as you can, well, you got to look at stuff like that.
So what do you think of individuals or these different companies that it almost seems like they're trying to turn the AR into something it's not, or vice versa? They're trying to AR-inize other guns like an AK, you know, but you have, like, for example, the Brownells, the BR-180.
I've shot one of those a couple weeks ago.
Because, like, I see some of these things and I like the idea of it, but I view it as a different weapon system altogether at that point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the AR means something specific. I don't think you can call something an AR when you start really deviating from that formula. You know, I'm not saying that whatever you end up with is a bad thing. It's just not an AR. Again, I'm not saying that's bad. It's just not an AR. You know, I think that where you run into problems is whenever you start going too far off the farm. Like when you start deviating too much from the formula, you introduce problems. There's a reason why you're better companies, you're better performance companies, despite the fucking tier list. Despite that, you don't see a whole lot of 50 Beowulf Knights armament guns.
Yeah.
You don't see a whole lot of 7.62 by 39 BCM guns. You don't see a lot of that stuff, right? When you start getting outside of the engineering of the gun, the original engineering, the bolt geometry per se, like, you know, you're having to remove material to fit a larger case, and you're asking the gun to do something it's never designed to do, it introduces problems, especially with magazines and their ability to feed reliably and so on and so forth. I think that there are some people asking this gun to do shit it was never designed to do, and there's a reason why your better companies don't chase that fucking rabbit. Okay? If you want a gun that shoots a straight-walled, you know, 400 grain fucking bullet, you know, go buy a lever action. Go buy a Winchester, you know, model like an 1886 lever gun in 4570, dude, and that's a pretty badass straight-walled deer cartridge. You know, like that's not the cartridge I think I need to shove up a mag well of an M4.
Have you gotten the chance to shoot really any of the different cartridges that they have now for the AR platform, and which ones do you think maybe aren't bad?
Oh yeah, dude. So our shooting team, our precision guys, they shoot 6.5 Grendel. We produce that gun, but like I will tell anybody that's interested, like I would never suggest a 6.5 Grendel like to defend your home.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because your extractors are more prone to premature failure. Your bolt geometry and the structural integrity of that bolt is different. The magazines and their ability to feed reliably, while you can work on those mags and kind of get that going, it's never going to be as reliable as a PMag or a fucking a USGI mag with the correct follower on a 5.56. So I think the 6.5 Grendel is one of the most impressive cartridges you can shove up an M4 mag well, and ballistically it does some really neat stuff.
Yeah.
And if a gun is built purposefully to launch that caliber, I think it's neat what you can achieve with it. With that being said, does it have the same level of predictable performance as a well-built 5.56? No. So 6 Arc, interesting cartridge. We make them kind of neat. 300 Blackout. 300 Blackout is a fun gun. I think it's wildly misunderstood. I think 300 Blackout is probably the most misunderstood caliber out there. We make them, and I think we make them very well, but I think people have to have a realistic performance expectation of what they're buying with that.
So what do you feel is the most misunderstood part of the 300 Blackout?
Well, the 300 Blackout's like real beauty really wasn't about, subsonic quiet shooting, which is what everybody kind of buys it for, that subsonic quiet shooting. Number one, subsonic ammunition on target is ballistically a bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
You're not getting some of that same, hydrostatic shock or some of that same destructiveness, if you will. But the 300 Blackout, its beauty is the fact that you're in a very short platform, in a very short gun, okay? It does outperform 5.56 up until that 5.56 barrel gets long enough and the bullet has enough time to accelerate to a certain velocity, and then that performance gap ballistically begins to shrink. So 300 Blackout, if you're building a super short gun and space is the issue, it's neat. I think when people ask me for 16-inch 300 Blackout rifles,
You're completely defeating the purpose of the 300
Blackout. I've been asked for 300 Blackout 18-inch rifles, and I'm like, okay, you really don't get, you don't understand the cartridge. But I would imagine that this is something that a lot of people in my position see. They get, they want a Ferrari that they can pull their plow with. That's not the, it's two separate things.
Yeah. So on that, what do you think is probably the worst cartridge design that has come up for the AR platform?
I mean, I'm not a fan of the Buy 39 cartridge at all in that platform. I think if you want to shoot Buy 39 ammo, go buy a fucking AK. They're really good at that.
Yeah.
Again, some of your 50 Beowulf, some of your 450 Bushmasters,
458 SOCOM.
458 SOCOM. That if you want to go blow up some cantaloupes or something, that's cool. But I mean, I think those guns are highly problematic. I've seen guys that are putting like 338 Lapua and stuff in AR family platforms, and I believe that like a 338 Lapua is a bolt gun cartridge.
Yeah.
Again, this is just my opinion. Like, I'm not, if you have one and you love it, good for you. I will probably not make one anytime soon.
What do you think about the 350 Legend in AR platforms? I know that one was kind of a politically driven, from my understanding, cartridge, because it was kind of geared to go around some of the hunting laws in certain states where you can't hunt with this rifle because it's not a straight wall, something like that, but they still wanted to use the AR platform.
So I was invited, so my buddy that owns Gerbrand Defense, he was going to take me on a whitetail hunt in Michigan where straight walled cartridges are required, and he told me I need to go buy a rifle that fires a 350 Legend cartridge. That was what he suggested. I went out and bought a Ruger American bolt-action rifle, and I can build whatever I want. I'm sure I could call companies and request platforms or barrels and stuff like that to do. I mean, I have resources to do whatever I wanted, and what I wanted to do was a bolt-action rifle that's uncomplicated and very predictable, and that's what I did. So, again, that for what it's worth, I'm not saying I'm the fucking final word on this. People go out and do whatever they want. Go explore and experiment. When I needed a straight wall cartridge to go deer hunt in Michigan, I picked a bolt-action rifle.
So, what other hobbies or ventures do you have?
See, I hunt nonstop, man. I'm a little too into fast cars. I think I'm gonna try to get current again. I used to skydive quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
I've been out of the. I haven't been current in many years, but that's something I'm trying to do. And then, of course, being a dad, I got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's just a fucking ton of fun.
Yeah.
It gets more and more fun, like every day. That occupies a lot of my time. I'm actually going to probably start traveling less. I'm probably going to start teaching less classes and try to be on the road much less because I want to spend more time with my family. So yeah, you know, if you're interested in armor, of course, do it soon.
So what is your go-to conceal?
Glock 19, the factory,
19, yeah.
Factory Glock 19. I don't put anything aftermarket on there. I mean, I'll use an RMR or Red Dot, but factory Glock 19.
So do you carry with a MRDS on your pistol?
It depends. I mean, most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have several Glock 19s. People ask me about that, and the same way it frustrates me when I see people fuck up our formula, right? Like, they'll take the A5 buffer system off the gun, and they'll put some other thing back there. This is not a knock on the other thing. This is explaining that gas port with that dwell time pressurizing that volume of gas tube with the carrier speed that we're looking for, and to open that operational envelope as wide as possible. We've used this particular component for a very specific reason. When I see people fuck with that, it's kind of frustrating. To me, I look at the Glock, like the reciprocating mass of that slide was intentional. The spring, the rod and stuff that was used in that was intentional. I think that the guys at Glock have figured out how to make a well-shooting, reliable pistol. So I see a lot of aftermarket triggers and stuff like that out there, and I normally see them experience some issue. It's not to say that there's a lot of great stuff out there. Me personally, my preference, factory 19 pistol.
So we shouldn't expect Sons of Liberty to do a collab with Glock and do their own Salak or something.
No. I think you gotta specialize to some degree. I mean, I want to do what we do and be like the best at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So last question that I got for you is, I know you probably haven't really had a chance to see any of the content that I put out, but I wanted to get your perspective on what a thinking shooter is. This is kind of a question that I like to ask folks is, the channel name is The Thinking Shooter, and I like to ask, what does that mean to them? Because to me, the concept of it is more than just shooting.
Sure. Who were those guys that recently shot a donkey? Did you see that?
Uh-uh.
I think there were some guys that were like predator hunting under nods, and they saw something like in a bush. And they shot
Absolutely laid waste to a
Yeah, and
donkey.
it was like a desert donkey. Anyways, it's pretty funny. I saw this. I would imagine that's the antithesis of the thinking shooter. I don't know, man. I guess when I hear thinking shooter, to me, there's a bit of a responsibility to being armed. I mean, obviously, I want every American armed. I think every American deserves and is guaranteed the right to arms. But having a little bit of foresight, you know, and what that means to not just be, you know, like what does it mean to be a citizen? You know, there's a difference. What do you, as a citizen? Citizens are active in their community. They're active in their politics. They're active in their governance. They're active in a lot of these things. The true meaning of a citizen. And so to me, I think being active in that stuff and giving a shit is part of that, I suppose. You know, whatever that may be. I'm not talking about even politics or gun advocacy. I'm just saying, like, making your community a better place. Whatever that may be. Whatever that may be to you.
Mike, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and doing this interview. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this this little session that we had with Mike. They make awesome rifles. If you guys are ever interested, you know, is there any particular? Just go to the website.
Well, Facebook, Instagram.
Facebook.
I'm available. I mean, my number is my personal cell phone number is plastered all over the internet. If there's something I can ever help with, you know, whether it's our product or just an AR question or something, or gun advocacy in your area or something, give me a call. I'm happy to help any way I can.
Awesome. Guys, that was it. I hope you liked the interview with Mike. As always, make it make sense. Later.